in Spain tried to stop the AI thing because it was you got a difficult employee didn't meet their didn't meet the bar. Anybody else? We need to promote.
Let's do, because we have a couple people remote. Tony, Michelle, how are you guys? Jeff, I'll promote you to analyst. And Brittany, Tony, Michelle.
I think I was already promoted.
Yep, you're in, Tony. Okay. All right. Let's do a quick start of the meeting. Michelle and Tony, why don't you guys start? And then actually we could just start, right? The only one we're missing, I think, is Leo.
And Robert?
Yeah, Robert.
We have two remote. Christine, do we have to remember that two of them are remote? Yeah, they have to now.
All right,
Just getting remotely.
Michelle and Tony, why don't we start attendance with you guys, please?
Michelle Kirkby here.
Tony Papatonis here.
Teresa James here. Carolyn Casey here.
Bob Meany here.
John Messina here. Peter Michelson here.
Bill Warner here.
Mike Weber here.
Meredith Chamberlain here.
All right, how's everyone doing? Thank you for this turnout. This is one of the better meetings we've had, so that's good. We've got a couple items on the agenda tonight. Why don't we look at the meeting minutes real quick? Leo, why don't you say you're here?
Leo Bratton here.
Good job. I was mentioning earlier to Carolyn that I think the meeting minutes 15 got cut off. It looks like we only have like, it was 2.5 pages long. I don't feel like the meeting ended then. So I don't think that anyone else noticed that discrepancy.
It was a little rough, but I was trying to go back and remember.
I'll take a look.
So I think that we'll not vote on those
Yeah,
tonight.
just table that and I'll go back and see what happens.
That's the 10-9, that's the Dale Street one.
Yep. Right. All right, why don't we get into public hearing, right, and talk about site selection. This group specifically has been talking about it for, well, since we started really, but in earnest probably the last 3 or 4 meetings. I'm happy to open the floor to the committee first, and then let's let some of the public who are here talk a little bit, and kind of go from there. Anybody got any additional comments, to add on anything we said in the last couple of meetings? All right, great. That was easy. Anybody here? Scott Watkins. Scott, thank you for your letter to the editor, by the way.
Michael, start with it.
Yeah, please do.
I mean, and I guess, and this is just really a clarity for the public and for myself even. As we talk about site selection, it's not about, it's really, that decision is about where we're going to go study the site. We're still going to come up with design options, with no decision about an ad reno or new build or anything like that. Those are all alternatives we will be exploring in the future. This is really just about a focused effort on where we're going to focus our attention.
A great clarification. Yeah, we have no idea renovation if we can reuse any of the building. We talked about that in the past. Costs are going to be a concern, right? So, really, when it gets down to it, which we hope in the next couple of months we can have some some idea if we have to maybe do this on our own or get some state funding or whatever it may be. We want to know where to focus. So I think that's a good point. Yeah.
So I raised this at the last meeting, and so I'll try to keep this super short. My own feeling is we're waiting one more month, hopefully, to hear from the MSBA. And I'm not going to tell you I read thoroughly all the documents that were submitted or prepared last time. But among them were documents looking at what is it like at Wheelock, what's it like at Dale, what's it like if it's Dale new, what's it like with Dale renovation, other potential options. And that's all required by the MSBA process. If, God willing, we get into the MSBA, I think we're going to have to do all that again. And so my feeling is not that we shouldn't have a discussion tonight, perfectly good to discuss it, but why not wait till next month to see what the MSBA does or doesn't do?
So after last month, I looked into what we did last time. We did do due diligence. We can pick as a town wherever we want. So we can decide.
Okay.
And that's the reason. And that's one of those things that we did the due diligence. This is 5 years ago now, 6 years ago. Last time, and we did it because we weren't sure where we wanted it to be. We had a failed vote, and when it came down to it, the decision was still the committees. Not this, they don't say you need to go there or go there. So really, what we're trying to do is focusing on the site. So feasibility study will still have to be done, but it'll be done for the answer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Can I
Oh, go ahead, Carolyn, first, and then I'm sorry.
I was just going to add to that because I was thinking about that from the last meeting when you said that. I think the difference then was the committee had not voted before they got in the program for the site. So they had these two sites, they got in the program, and then they explored them both. So you had to send documents on both of them to the MSBA. But we're choosing a little different route this time. We've done this, the site selection now for the last year looking at it, and we're talking about voting tonight. So we will just need to give them, we'll if we get in, we'll be starting the process just for Dale Street, whether new, I don't know, whatever, we don't know yet. So we'll explore both of those. So I think that might be where the confusion is because they didn't vote before. They started the process looking at both.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
If you don't mind just.
Ed was on 65.
Yeah, no way.
I think the way it was done last time was the way to do it because you have to look at there's two potential sites, Wheelock and Dale. And to vote now and think that Dale is the site, I think is putting the cart before the horse. If we get accepted, and I hope we do, we're going to have the feasibility study, as Peter said. And during that feasibility study, you have to look at the costs of both locations in earnest. You have to look at the pros and cons. And at the end of that, the committee makes a determination which site best fulfills the educational vision of the school system. So we can't do that. We can't vote now on Dale Street. You haven't done your homework yet. We first have to go through that entire feasibility study, then do this. I know it's expedient, maybe, to do it this way, but that's not the right way, in my mind. It's not the way I don't think the MSBA would advise us. I mean, that's why they have the feasibility study.
So, thank you for your comments, Ed, and thanks for coming. So I'll take the first part. So I agree with you to a point where we don't know the costs. You're 100% correct in that. That said, I feel like we have asked the town. When we talk about feasibility study, it's a long laundry list of, and I have it somewhere in my notebook there, what it actually is, and there's 10 or 12 steps to it for sure. But we kind of have done the due diligence that you said we haven't done. I really feel strongly. This group has done some really good things, but we're moving slow. And I understand your point, and I'm happy to talk about it more. But generally speaking, when you look at all the sites around town, and there are more than two, but two would probably make the most sense for sure. I feel like we've gotten a lot of input from the town, from the people, not just this committee, and I feel like we've done some of that due diligence. That you feel like you mentioned that we maybe haven't. So that's my only rebuttal on that one. But I appreciate the comments. Go ahead. Yeah.
When you say you've done the due diligence, have you done the due diligence on both sites or just one? I know you've done a survey, and I know what the survey said, but the survey is just just 1,000 people. There's a lot more people in town than 1,000 that need to vote on this, and I think that it's their decision as to whether they're going to vote for a school. Now, don't get me wrong. If you go through the whole process and it comes out that the school, there's a new school that we can build here at Dale that's going to meet all the expectations of the school system and be consistent with their vision, then everybody, I think, would be on board. But to just, I don't know, not do the process correctly, I think is wrong.
Okay. Thank you. You have something to say? No.
Well, I guess I can tell you. So in the last process, we went through the MSBA process, which includes a very comprehensive, as Mike was saying, process. And we investigated 7 sites throughout the town. One of the things that I would hope that we could do in this because of that is hopefully bypass some of that, because we did do a thorough check on the hospital sites. And all the land that was owned by the town was reviewed in that process. And the 2 most viable sites were the current location and the Wheelock site. There are other sites that were large enough, but access and utilities, getting them there, would add considerable costs, to that process, and much further outside of the centralized area of our town. So you're right in the sense that the 2 viable sites are, MSBA could or might, or if we've decided on one, may or may not. I do agree with you on the exploring that, but I guess a lot of that work has been done.
I would agree. A lot of the things you can check a lot of the 12 boxes already. But
I would hope so for the money we spent.
But for the costs and everything else, the pros and cons, etc., that still should be explored to the same extent that it was before.
Could I add on that point? I guess my question on that would be, what has relatively changed amongst each sites? If it's a new build at one versus a new build at the other, the relative costs are they will in absolute terms be higher today than they were 3 years ago. Relatively, they should be exactly the same. Same issue with a ad reno. It would be relative to a new build cost. So I'm not sure that anything, the locations anything about the locations has changed. And we had a vote on it that had a really high turnout, despite being still only a small percentage of the town's voters. And so I think it's a little bit hard for me to hear today that we're not ready to make a site decision that I think the majority of the town felt that they were making when they voted no last time. So I think that is accurate. The survey has shown that data, and so I think we're, the committee might be being a little bit more balanced than maybe I'm sounding.
I think what you just said, there's no reason to vote because we voted last time. And last time it was against Wheelock and Progress. There's no need to vote again because we voted once and that's it. That's not it. It's a whole new 4 years have gone by.
Sure.
This is a new vote. You just can't say, well, we're going to vote. We're going to decide on Dale because that's what because Wheelock didn't pass last time. You have to have a new vote. You just can't go by last time.
No, we're not voting on a specific school yet. We're voting to look at a site in earnest so that we can refine everything that was done last time yet again, which I think will yield similar answers, but maybe at a specific site that the town is very excited about in general, which we've learned from 2 surveys post-vote.
Excited about it until you vote.
I mean, that's like saying surveys aren't real.
You can't go on a survey. It's only a microcosm. It's 1,000. How many voters do we have? 8,000? 9,000?
9,920.
So you got 10% of the precincts. 10% of the precincts have given you their opinion.
They call
But
Massachusetts
I don't think any
5%
more
less
are
than-
gonna give their opinion.
I think Chris has it.
Yeah, I just, Ed, to your point, so if you look back at the last documents from the last project, MSBA actually said that both sites would meet the educational plan. There was no difference in the sites in terms of meeting the educational plan. They stated that. And then also, they specifically stated that the site selection is a local decision. I have that in a letter from them, and that they don't get involved in site selection at all. And beyond our own data, their own data shows that a lot of projects fail because of poor site selection. So if we as a community can get behind, if everybody can get behind a site and there's a huge amount of buy-in, we have a really good chance of moving this project forward faster than we would if we were to extend this feasibility study out. And there's a lot of data in there from that first project, a lot of data and a lot of feedback from MSBA about the pros and cons, the things that they pointed out. So that's all documented.
And I'll just add to it, just to be fair. I think this group has done a phenomenal job in going above and beyond in testing the waters with all the forums that they had so people could come face to face. They kept asking the question over and over and over. Where would you prefer? What would you move forward with? So to hear the last meeting, is it Robert? That reviewed the data from the survey, basically said that from the soundbite that we got 96% of the people in this town saying if you go the route of Dale, you can at least get my support. Now we need to figure out cost, we need to figure out new build, reno, but to go back to something that we've already heard from the citizens that are keeping in touch with this, pick the site, and the site has said, at least from last meeting I sat in, it was Dale pretty resoundingly, and we need to unify the town to get everybody now to be able to put up the cash and the yes vote. So I think these guys have killed yourself in trying to flush out, is there any wiggle room for another site, and I think it's come back in stereo that it's Dale.
So there's no reason to even have a meeting in the town. There shouldn't even be an item on the town because you've decided.
They're following the process right now. Do they have to have a meeting like tonight to have it in the public?
No, I guess I don't know how to say this, but I still think that you surveyed about 1,000 people, about 10% of the voters, and I don't disagree with what they said, but it's up to this committee to decide which location is best, not which one the town necessarily, you think they prefer based on 1,000 people in the survey, but based upon the pros and cons after you do this analysis. What if you get this money, go through the feasibility study, and Wheelock comes in $5 million less than whatever is proposed over here? Then what happens? What do you do? Are you saying, well, it doesn't matter because
can I just ask
both
you,
either
what would be
location?
the procedure? By the way, I probably have never. This is a guy I respect in every way in terms of your work. But I'm trying to understand what you think the procedure should be. If they don't, when should this be? It's not going to come before the whole town. Ultimately, it does. But that comes before the town when it's the building project. The site doesn't. So you're proposing at a feasibility level there would be a vote at a town meeting to determine the site? What are you proposing?
No, it's the same process that we went through before. You examine both sites, the committee decides this is the site that best fulfills the school's curriculum and their vision of the future, and that's the site that is presented at town meeting for a vote. It's not one or the other. You present one.
If there's anything I've learned in this process is that we could have the best plan put out and the best for us, unless everyone believes that. last night dictated anything to me, that remains true. And we could go through that process again and end up right back in the same place.
Take a second to use one person's opinion, because I've wrestled with this, and to be honest, like internally, I probably feel like the Wheelock site is better. But then you get back to, all right, like, why are we here? Are we here to advocate for the site that we think is best, or to advocate on behalf of the town for a site where we think we can build the best school possible? And people can argue over what their position is. You know, as we've gone along the way and done some of the outreach and the data, and this idea that, like, yes, the survey is 10%, but as I've kind of worked through this with, you know, Carolyn and the comm subcommittee as we've done this, like, the sample we have would be statistically significant in terms of, like, you can get all 9,000 people weigh in and you get to about the same answer. Because you wouldn't get, I mean, just the data would tell you, you couldn't collect 1,000 random people, and we have right there across all 4 precincts equally. They have a pretty representative sample of people who have kids in the school, kids not in the school, people who have kids used in the school. Right, so we tried to make sure that at least the population set isn't flawed. And what the data says is that, or how people like respond to the data, it's that it'd be really hard to get to a 2/3 vote at Wheelock, and almost everyone who has, essentially it's almost everyone who said Wheelock was their first choice would also be supportive of a project with Dale if that was the alternative, whereas a good majority of the people whose first choice was Dale would not be supportive of a project at Wheelock. And so, I just want to finish it, right? So then, I'm just going down in my head, all right? So, like, yeah, I kind of prefer Wheelock, but the data says, like, everybody doesn't think like me. So now I'm back to, like, I don't want to waste my time. I want to make sure that we're bringing the best project forward, which right now suggests that it's Dale. And then so the last piece of the calculus is like, all right, what would then have to change to all of a sudden revisit that assumption? And it would have to be, I think, some, like, either outside disruption or some outsized difference in costs, which didn't exist last time around. The 2 different, you know, initial estimates on the sites were within the ballpark of each other. And so, like, we didn't ask that kind of question now, but I think it would have to be like, you know, you're talking like, you know, one project would have to be $20 million cheaper than the other project to have it in the conversation set. That is my opinion. We didn't ask that, so I don't want to speak to the town on that. But that's just how my logic loop of someone who started at Wheelock is now here today saying, okay, like, well, you know, probably the best spot for us to move forward and focus attention is probably Dale, and go do the work there. And listen, it's like, we have to revisit it because there's some, you know, red herring that comes out as we get down the process that it makes it non-relevant. Then as a committee, we should raise our hand and stop and do that at that time. But as we sit here today, it's kind of like, it's the logical outcome based on the data and everything we've done. That's again my one person's opinion of, and I started with where you were.
But we're relying on a survey to make a decision. I think it should be the town's.
Mike, I mean, there's a point to this. I mean, how much impact on the feasibility study would there be to still survey the other site as
yeah, not much, but I would also rebut a little bit on, it's not the survey only. We've had forums, we've talked to the town, we've had, you know, 2 years of meetings. So it's not just a survey.
And can I just?
Or 2 surveys, actually.
That's what I want to add in. We actually had 2 surveys. We've done it 2 years. We've had over 1,000 on each. So we have over 2,000 responses that focus. The last one focused completely on location, but the first one focused on why the last project failed. And without a doubt, location was one of the big reasons for no. There were other reasons for no. The location, very clearly in the first survey of over 1,000 people, location was the piece. That's why we spent all year studying location, because it was such a big no factor. So when we started last spring, we talked about it here, gathered information, talked about what was done before the other proposal, and then we did the 4 forums, and then decided still wanted to get more information. We sent out the survey and got, you know, 1,100.
or actually just about 1,200. So I just want to clarify that it's actually over 2,000 respondents about a future project.
I think the other thing I want to mention is it wasn't just the surveys. We were also at Medfield Day twice, and this topic came up. I also hand-delivered letters to a lot of houses around Dale to encourage participation in the last meeting. We also had school committee members and other people at the open houses this fall to get this conversation out there for our school-aged families, Memorial, Wheelock, Dale, middle, and high school. So I feel like, and even the timing, there were tours offered at Dale, and they were varied by time to try to hit people that are maybe retired or people that don't work during the day or people that work during the day and are not at night. So I think I just, yeah, I mean, obviously I trust, having worked, it's almost been how many years now, sorry, on this committee too. I feel like that if there is something that throws us awry in price or whatever happens down the path, I don't feel like we're just going to charge forward and not pause, because we've paused a lot. It was actually, I think, Scott that said, why don't we wait 1 month to have this discussion and first invite the abutters? Like, we've been listening to the public when they've given us suggestions to modify things. And for me, when you're elected or you're appointed or however you want to say it to a committee, like, we're the voices of what people are sharing us. To me, my opinion is kind of irrelevant of where it is. I don't necessarily agree, but it doesn't matter, because my job is to see what the townspeople of Medfield is asking for, and that's what we're supposed to do, is move a project forward of what the townspeople are telling us. So it's scary at any point to make a decision. We're not going to make everybody happy. It's not going to be possible. But I think, like, there comes a point in a time where inaction also becomes, or just a discussion or making a vote and keep delaying that also becomes not in the best interest of townspeople, because we're just keep moving the needle on something that we all needs to get done. Because that's what everybody agrees on. So we got to do something.
And I think it's important just to also stress again that doing so does not shortchange the educational benefit of that, of doing it with Dale Street site, because again, you know, the school committee came up with a great educational plan, and MSBA looked at that, celebrated it, and said each site will be able to execute this educational plan. So it's really the educational component of it is not really an issue at all. MSBA was thrilled with that educational plan, and didn't see a difference.
Yeah, that was actually my last point, and I appreciate that you brought up the educational plan. That's what it matters for a school, right? I mean, and Chris, exactly what I was going to say is that it's going to be great no matter where it is.
Sure.
And we're going to redo the one that they did, 5 years ago, but it works at Dale now. So I appreciate the comments. Anything else?
I guess maybe just help re-educate and educating the public, because you never know when the jumping the target is, right?
Yeah.
You can pick it up. The feasibility study. So this decision, or a potential vote for site selection tonight, does what? Can you help fill out that answer and what our next actions would be and how it's going to help us really raise that?
You know, it's better than me. Really, it shortens the amount of due diligence you have to do to submit a feasibility study. We're only picking one study. Okay, so that's really what it narrows it down to.
I think what it really is also going to do is going to tell MSBA that we're going to focus on one site. The one thing that got in the way last time of the backing, because it's a bruise to MSBA what happened, 100%. I came from the same meeting that Michelle's at today when I saw Dr. Martin and Michelle at today, and that room is full of architects and OPMs and everything else, and they all know about it too. They all watch the projects, right? So they're all talking about it. And so I think one of the things is this is going to communicate to the MSBA that because if we do it tonight, someone will send an email, to them, informing them that this has happened. We're continuing to move forward, and that's what they want to hear. So I think that is one of the reasons that that's happening.
In
No,
the town,
in the
too.
event.
In the town, by the way.
Yeah, in the
we're
town.
communicating to the town.
Yeah.
I'm just punctuating that, Michael Ryback. That is not lost on me, and it shouldn't be lost on anybody in the room, that it's also a signal to the town that we're listening. That the process we've undertaken over the last 2 years to conduct multiple surveys, to unpack the results of the prior vote, to hold forums. We don't need to go into this ad nauseam. We've already discussed all those efforts, but that we hear the constituents of this town.
The other thing I want to add too is that when with the last project, because we kept 2 sites in play for the longest time, the study for each site did not get so in depth until it was further along. Because I remember like Mike Quinlan saying, well, we'll study that once we get to the next project. And so if you focus on one site, you can really, I'd love to hear from Anthony because he's a construction person. I would think that being able to spend a lot of time and spend money wisely to really study the Dale Street site will be able to give us really good numbers to make that ad reno or new construction decision, because you can look at it a lot more closely than we were able to do the first time around to make that decision. So I don't know, it's just my...
Yeah, look, if it's at Wheelock, it's a new build. If you build a new build at Dale, relatively it's the same size, more or less. The difference is the utilities, the site infrastructure, things like that. A school, square footage wise, 100,000 square foot school, Tony, people who build these things can tell you within 5% what it's going to cost you right now. So regardless of where it is.
Well, I'm thinking more of the ad reno.
Yeah, but so then, the ad reno.
Takes a lot more analysis.
100%. Yeah, look, both points well taken, because we're messaging, hey, we're listening, and also we get to focus more on one side. I'm yet to hear in all the forums and meetings and everything. I'm sure we had a couple people say it in the survey results, but literally a couple, like Wheelock or not. But I've heard that dozens or hundreds of times about Dale Street. Like, Dale Street is where I want the school. I don't want to know else. I think that's a strong message that I've heard. Yeah, Scott.
Mike, when we were talking about the timing of this and that, I think it was 2 meetings ago, I spoke to having it tonight because I was, I wanted to be behind advancing the ball on this project, and I identified, 4 reasons, and one of them was that I think that although, that was a referendum, whatever we experienced and lived through a couple of years ago, there was enough for us to be able to pull out of that by way of learning that, informs a question about site decision. But it was, so I don't want to disregard that, despite all the, everything that we've done since in terms of surveys and everything. We put the town through quite an exercise, and there was a lot spoken to, and I had 500 discussions about sites, and you probably had 500 discussions about sites, so it was a real experience. So there is some learning from that. And the second thing was that, I think we should be thinking about the plus of the opportunity. This town has had these 3 campuses on these historic roads, at Pound Street, and at Elm Street, and at Adams Street. And so, a lot of times it looks like it's selecting a lesser alternative, but I think a great school could be built, in the area right here, adjacent to us here. And so I think that there's a great opportunity that we don't want to lose on that. The third thing was, Chris, and this is, with all due respect, I'm not sure I want to, resurrect the Dale at Dale elements of the town being divided on a project that ultimately is going to require a 2/3 vote. Whatever it means, even if it's whether it's location or that wasn't the only factor, right? It wasn't only location. But there's other things we don't, and so that's a reality. And at the end of the day, the reality that we live with is it does require a 2/3 vote, and then it requires another vote at the polls in order to get it done. And because the towns, to me, we've talked about the brand of the town, and it's, the relationship of education to that brand. It's time to kind of push forward. So I've been advocating over the past couple of months since I left my prior post, so let's at least try to keep pushing ahead. And I think they've done a very thorough job in terms of the work they've done to try to reach out to the community and to try to to reach out to the. I think it's very important to reach out to the neighbors here on Adams Street, and so I think there's been a lot of processes. So that's why I just wanted Ed to know that's kind of why I've been advocating to keep pushing ahead, deliberatively and positively. So.
Could I add something? I'm not sure if it helps.
Sure.
If I raise my hand. I'm Tracy Foley. I live at 45 Elm Street. I live
Tracy, sorry, I saw you.
Back to you.
Is that your hand raised over?
That was me.
Yeah. I would have gotten to you. Sorry, it was hard to interrupt everybody.
I jumped in my car and got here just to add some additional perspective, which is maybe piggybacking on what was just said. Where it may feel to you, Ed, like this is suddenly like the committee is making a decision. I feel like this has been an incredibly long journey for Medfield to get to this place with new people, fresh eyes, surveys being taken. When this process was happening several years ago, we had surveyors walking on our property trying to survey for the Wheelock School without any permission. When we had conflict within the town, we had meetings really fighting to preserve historic land over at Wheelock. I don't think we felt heard as neighbors, and I feel like what has happened throughout this process, to your point, is there's been more listening, there's been more growth, there's been more information that's been absorbed, and I think the survey may seem kind of minimal, but I saw a lot of information on that survey that I thought was new information. It was helpful. I think that there are people involved who have a fresh perspective on it, and I think pushing forward, looking at a location that isn't Wheelock. Obviously, I have a bias in that, but that didn't go well. So if people are somewhat behind Dale Street, why wouldn't we start to move in that direction? And I'm kind of unclear about what votes are being taken tonight or anything, but I did want to just have some perspective with everything that's happening over on Elm Street with buildings, homes being built, land just getting cleared to make way for houses. This is a really important thing for us to be talking about.
Thanks. Glad you came. I would have gotten to.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was starting to go a little crazy just watching.
Yeah, no, I think I like what Scott said too about the opportunity that we have. What's incumbent on us as a community and really as a town is to get behind something that works, right? In our kids, in our educators, in all that. We know we have an old building that needs replacement or renovation, but it would be a massive renovation. So all that being said, I think that picking a site, focusing on a site, working with the town to design something or renovate something that works really well in the confines of the land that we think the town wants it at, is incumbent on us at a cost that we, will swallow and vote on to pay eventually. I also think that, generally speaking, the Dale Street, part of why it didn't fail too is we don't have a plan for the school if it's not there. We don't have a school there, we have an empty building, right? And I remember hearing that a lot the last time. And that kind of resonated with me here. The school building committee, we had no purview into saying what can happen with that building. Whereas, a town like Walpole, they built another school, combined middle schools, and they were, but the select board, and remember they had plans to rent that out, the school committee renting it out to another educational, group or whatever. It works out well for them. We didn't have any plans like that. We still don't, as far as I'm concerned. I know, right? So, leaving a large empty building that's old and not in great shape, to be a landlord in a building like that would be challenging, I think. So I also think that there's something like that matters. Anybody else who's here who we haven't heard from, who'd like to speak up? I mean, I would still like to vote tonight.
I concur.
Anybody else against it? Any other comments? All right, I'll open it up for a motion to vote on site selection, for new Medfield Elementary School, to be at Dale Street. And, if you have any comments before you vote, please do. Why don't we start with online, Tony? Why don't we start with you? Oh, can I?
That was meant to approve the motion.
Thank you. Anyone want to second that? Got ahead of myself.
I lost you.
Tony just make the motion?
He made the motion.
I'll second that.
Carolyn seconds. All right. So the motion is, just to clarify, to vote to build, renovate Dale Street School at the Dale Street School location on Adams Street. Tony's made the motion. Carolyn seconded. Okay. Michelle or Tony, one of you guys want to start?
Sure. Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tony Papantonis, yes.
She said James yes, but I'm gonna offer a comment, just to, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please do.
And likewise, a couple of comments, I've struggled with we locked down, you know, trying to put that aside. And we've clearly heard the community kind of say, we really need to go focus on Dale. And I think that that's what I see this as, is that some opportunity. The last project had a real focus on relock, came out with a solution. We really know what that solutions look like. I think a focus on Dale will allow us to really explore those two options. So let's put some focus there.
Awesome.
Alan Casey, yes.
Bob Meany, yes.
John Messina, yes. Because I never shut up. Peter Michelson, yes, but I just also want to make a comment. My concern, which Mike assuages, is I didn't want to do anything that ran even the slightest risk of annoying or antagonizing or anything the MSBA if God willing, we get accepted into that process. For the representation that we can pick a site and they'll be okay with it, I'm all for going ahead with this, so yes.
Peter Brem, yes.
Warner, yes.
Mike Weber, yes as well. Being part of the last committee, I wish that this particular decision was handled differently the last time, because I truly believe that the relapse school would have been great. And I understand now why so many people didn't like it. But regardless, I'm happy to vote yes on this and focus on one site and try to vote. So.
Can I just ask, do we know when the MSBA decision is, have they posted what?
Jeff is not here, he was online. It was first or second week of December last time we heard.
To your point, Carolyn, of when to have the next meeting.
Yes, that wasn't one, but I also wondered, just in timing in terms of us getting them information, you know, we continue as a town to move ahead, you know, we want to do something so that they view us in a positive light.
First week in December.
First week in December?
That's what Dr. Martin said.
Last year.
That was like a
Last year wasn't it late November?
Last year was December 13th.
It's December 13th.
Again?
Yes, December 13th.
Day.
It's Friday.
So do we want to do our meeting?
It's not the first week, it's December.
No. So we've done Wednesdays. Do we want to stick with Wednesdays for December 18th?
Okay, just so, we were looking at the agenda, one of my thoughts was, because we talked about it a little bit, we can meet, but we won't know the MSBA on the first Wednesday, right? We won't know their decision, where if we wait to get the decision, that might help us.
I would wait.
Part two of Jeff's answer.
I'd like to make
We'll find out the week before. Oh, so they're gonna.
So they have the meeting, but we know the week before.
You'll definitely know 48 hours before, because they put it on the agenda.
Yeah, that's pretty much the first week. So All right.
Oh, that's great for the first week,
Yeah.
if we know.
That we will
before.
know, yeah. All right, I'm looking at the calendar, sorry. Should we meet on the 11th?
Oh, because we would know that day,
We would know.
as long as I post the agenda before 7 o'clock, I think.
So I'm just a little confused. And last year, I remember refreshing the computer to see if we were on the list on the day they posted, so.
Yeah, I think you're told, I don't know. We have a, you can't really do much without that decision.
No.
Much more.
Yeah, I mean, that starts the whole
So
next piece.
we can make it January 8th, we can trade emails. I'm open to suggestions.
Did we ever do it?
Can I throw something out? I'm really praying we get in for financial reasons, obviously, to the MSBA. If we don't, and we therefore think we're most likely going to go it alone, shouldn't our next meeting be with the select board to talk about that and the financial ramifications of it? No?
What financial ramifications are there? I mean, we need to look, go through the MSBA steps and processes, like step 1, step 2, step 3, 4.
No, I'm saying if we don't get in.
Oh, I think that would be incumbent on us, yes. But I also think.
No, if we get in, the process is sort of like following a recipe in a cookbook.
Candidly. Yeah. I mean, we would maybe have a meeting before we talk to the select board, just so we can get our.
I think knowing before the end of the year, and having that meeting before the end of the year would be prudent. Then we approach the select board for the beginning of January. Right?
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't think that we're going to go rogue here. I think that we could probably have,
exercising our vast power.
A nice discussion amongst ourselves about, do we really want to do this? And let's talk to the select board about, hey, this is what we're thinking, because it's such a large process. And there's other things that may go into it as well that may come up, during that. So.
And Mike, if I remember right, because we've already done a feasibility study, like whatever feasibility study we do is at our cost.
Correct.
It's not a reimbursable item whatsoever.
That's right.
From the MSBA process.
You're
So the conversation on December 8th, if we know it, that's great. If not, we've made a decision that we need to talk about how to get a feasibility study going.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to have our agenda out 48 hours, 2 days in advance, so it would be hard to
put stuff on now and not address it.
Yeah.
So you want to do the 11th, and that gives hopefully we have an answer and gives time for the agenda, and then we can map out what our next steps would be, like when we want to go to the select board, what we want to say, etc.
Can I ask a question about next steps, because you raised that, and I don't know about the MSBA process enough, but some of you do, to know whether it makes any sense for us to have a next step be a communication with them of some kind that talks about how you just voted unanimously, a new committee made up of, we went through a long process to get this committee on board, and you've really, over the last 18 months, have really worked the community, and that something that indicates that there's a unified voice in town, around the idea of building an elementary school, which they already commended, were willing to finance a good portion of. I don't know whether there's a positive influence to be done as a next step before they make this decision or not, or whether maybe sometimes it makes sense to just be quiet, but I think on the business side, I tell my clients, don't fail for lack of aggressiveness, right? And so I wonder whether there's something.
No, we have an open channel with them.
Okay.
Already, so that's
a great point, Scott.
I mean, the Board of Selectmen, they are generally in favor of us doing an element, like everybody is, and the warrant committee is generally in favor of, maybe they already know all of this, about what's going on, but maybe they don't have any visibility into the fact that, we've refreshed and we have, you know, we learned a lot and, so, you know.
I made a note before you comment to get with Dr. Morris and draft an email exactly about tonight.
How about any community sentiment? Does that help?
Yeah, no, so there's been a fair amount of that already that we communicated to them. We met in May, probably had 2 separate communications to them about what we've done, how many meetings, how many forums, the surveys that we've conducted, things of that nature.
Yep.
I think one more in November, which is now, would be super helpful. I mean, it can't hurt, and I agree with you. Like, hey, here we are. We're doing our best to be united, and you know, we think as a town we're ready for this final. So. Yeah.
Final brief.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is a big decision. They're going to make a decision, and that's going to be a big. Coming out of that, it's going to be a fork in the road for us, right? Deciding when the next meeting is, we will be on the other side of that fork. And we'll know.
In the meeting you mentioned, you know, if we don't get in, probably, you know, include a fair amount of some of the warrant committee as well. Okay, I'd say
Why would we want those?
well, I mean, you said that, not me. You know, so Steve can talk about costs way better than I can when it comes to historical data, specifically.
Having Steve there would be a big help.
Recent historical data, bond costs, interest rates, those good stuff. You know, what it actually means to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then that's why I probably should meet it. All right, so why don't we say December 11th, and you know, if something happens,
Yeah.
all right. Carolyn, anything from the subcommittee, communication subcommittee?
Yes, just for those, just so you know, we have a new media outreach avenue, and it's called Constant Contact. And we've been sending out a link, and we're just wanting as many people as possible to click that link. It will ask for your name and email. And then what we're doing is we're going to be sending what they call an email update, or an email newsletter, as often as we can to keep everybody abreast of what's happening. We have the Facebook page, we have the town, we have a page of the town webpage, but we need more people. And so actually Christine is the one who came up with this idea. And this seems an avenue to reach more people. We currently have 437 people signed up.
Okay, good.
We sent our first update on October 30th, and the plan would be after each meeting to send another, you know, maybe even one in between meetings, depending on what is happening, right? We really get into the middle of, you know, trying to design and things. So I'm going to ask everybody to sign up, and then when you see the link, send it to all of your contacts. Because we need as many people in the community as we possibly can get to be informed, or we're going to get to the end, people are going to say, "Okay, what?"
Or share opinions, or whatever it may be. Right?
Yeah, that thing. I can show the update if you want, or not.
Yeah, whatever you want.
You want to do that? Just sign in or.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate that. Please come back.
Gotta pick up.
Carolyn's gonna block the exit when she sees that you signed up for the newsletter.
I just want to say to the board here, I can see emails and who signed up or not. They actually send me a list. So if you have not signed up, I know that. So I just
You're on the list.
I want to be really clear about that. Let me just,
You can share, right?
yeah, I can share. Carol, this is the one you sent out, right? This is what it looks like? Yes. Okay. Yes.
So what she shares is actually for the people here. Please forward it.
Recording in
I would love to
progress.
have, you know, thousands of people on this list. I mean, it has our contact information. Every once in a while, I get an email from somebody, but not often. Some of you guys have been showing up a lot, which I love. Like, this isn't going to work well. We're not going to pass unless we have engagement. So, you know, we'll see how it goes in the next 6 months, and we may have to do more proactive stuff. We've had suggestions about in the past, but this will help. So,
Has, I don't know if I should address this to you or Carolyn, has Jeff Marsden or someone in the school department sent this link out to all parents? Is that appropriate to do that?
Yes, I got it as a parent.
Yes,
Okay.
did that, and that's all. And Jeff's really been great about that, and, I'll ask him again to send it out.
Okay, no, that's
And
wonderful.
I'll ask Christine also to put it in the insider again, please. Really, you just have to sort of spread it, so.
Question, how do you get the link if you're not a parent? I mean, if you wanna sign up for it to be up to date on everything, how do you get it if you're not a parent?
You can go to, it's currently on the town's website, you can sign up on our town's website, or you can leave us your email tonight, we'll sign you up directly.
Right, sounds good. Perfect. Thank you.
One second, because.
Thank you for asking that.
Yes.
I believe it was also.
Christine, this is
I would say,
hold on a
sorry.
second. Go ahead. Town website, the town information email you can sign up for as well.
You can, that seems to be, a difficult hurdle for people, to sign up for the town one, I'm not sure why, constant contact just means.
It was a few more questions, that's why. When I signed up to the town one, you had to like select from the list.
You have, yeah,
It was a little bit more.
It's more than 30 seconds, so people don't.
It was more than an email address and.
Exactly, people aren't interested in doing it.
I was just
Yeah,
going to
it's
suggest
frustrating.
or ask the group for their expertise on this. What other avenues we can pursue to distribute that link to a more diverse population in the town? So perhaps the senior center, perhaps Hometown Weekly. I'm trying to think of meeting people where they are and not where we, already are in this room as engaged folks that, probably.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Can you?
I'll tell you what I'm doing right now, because I know Hinkley Helpers has a pretty extensive list.
I asked them to share it.
Did they do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I asked
Exactly,
them to share it.
those guys have a really broad list.
That's good.
And an idea I had was, I'm on the board for Medfield Youth Basketball, so you can literally just rotate through the gyms on a Saturday and hit grades 1 through 8, literally.
Yep.
So my plan is the season starts the first week of December, is to just go to the different gyms and hand them out. I plan to be in the gyms anyways. So.
And we're actually, thinking of also sharing it with, Park and Rec, because there's a bunch, there's people who use that when their kids aren't in school yet, so the kids will be, but aren't at the moment, so.
We could ask Sarah if she could print out 1 or 2 of these and just put on the bulletin board at the senior center. Just that way, those who don't have email aren't going to read this.
That's what I was thinking. Something like that. Make it easier for those folks. Library as well. I was thinking.
Offer 1% discount on your property taxes. So.
Stop talking.
What about a lottery for $1 million?
Yeah. Get him on.
Maybe Elon will kick us in.
Too soon, Christine. Don't think I didn't retweet it. Gotcha. I mean.
For some reason we had 9,800 signups.
I've already had the link 7 times. It's not that. I'm trying to find the person who wants to tell us 6 months from now if they didn't receive the link or didn't know about the link. I want to find them now. Proactively.
No, you're 100% right.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
So this is what it looks like, and I'm sorry, I forgot to talk about the logo design that we got in an email. So this is what you'll see when you get the update. This is our banner, MSBC, and it tells you what's in the issue right here on the left. It has a little bit of the history of Dale Street, and then it tells us about our next meetings. And then we were doing site selection, so we wrote a little bit about site selection. Then it has links to things for data, surveys, whatever you need. Since it was the first one, we put some background in about how the current school building committee was assembled using the town bylaw. And then a little update on what we have been doing. And for the team here, Jamie, I can't think of her last name, sent us a little logo for the school building committee, and this is it right at the bottom. I added that in.
That was nice. Nice job.
That's great.
For that. And then it's going to list right here. If you missed an issue right here, you'll have a link to see an old issue. It's not there yet because this is the first issue. And how it works is if you don't open it after we send it out a week later, we can have a resend to people who didn't open it because this. Thank you. This constant contact keeps it keeps track of who opens it and who doesn't, and so it can resend so that people all say, oh yeah, I forgot I wanted to open it, and you can open it, and it also tells you what links people are clicking, and so it lets us know what is important. So any ideas for sharing this and keeping people informed are greatly appreciated. And I think Christine was really, it's her idea, and she's put hours in over the last few weeks helping me get this up and going. I also want to thank Chris Fox because she helped a lot with tech support on this because she's used this before. Yeah. I hope this works. I hope this, really grows our followers. This is a great combination.
Yeah, I mean, especially like over the next couple of months, like hopefully we can get some traction, hopefully with MSBA, and this would be, a place where we can have close to this, right? And this is where we're at. Right, thank you. Anything else?
Sorry, we were just discussing the BAF Center, and I know this has come up a lot of times with folks about trying to tie the projects together, and I think you guys have given well-reasoned responses why that can't be done kind of through MSBA proper itself, but could potentially be part of the same project. But it feels like maybe we have the right people in the room given recent closure, or so I've heard from.
Our specific charge
Correct.
is the school building committee, so we technically cannot actually.
As a member of the permanent building committee,
Understood.
I'll answer for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking we've got a little more folks here in the room.
Just, I understand that's not
this committee's purview explicitly, but
I've been talking about this too, even before last week's issues. I think, Mike Whitman is the chair of the permanent building committee. I think maybe we probably have a meeting with you guys, or with Mike, or whoever it may be, or Christine. I know you're good at setting that stuff up.
We had a structural engineer on site today, so I don't have an update. We should have a report by the end of the week. We do believe we're not structural engineers. We're waiting for the final report, but we believe that it's an exterior brick issue, not an interior. So we should be able to open shortly. We are going to remain closed for 2 weeks just so we can do a full evaluation. And I'll have more information hopefully by end of this week, beginning next week.
But as a resident, I think we should tear this place down, build a new one. This committee, we had a lot on our hands, and the added costs, will be challenging. But as a resident, I'm all for it.
I totally agree with the idea of efficiencies of combined projects, 100%. But it's just not something we have the forethought at times. So.
Yeah, no. I mean, if anyone knows, I have been poking at Parks and Rec, and I sat in a meeting back in July or August, pushing them to pull together a plan because it's definitely not their responsibility.
Right.
Technically, it's not, to be honest, the select board's responsibility. There's a elected board for Parks and Rec that they should be. I was head back in 2006, and we put together a plan for a $4.5 million building before we owned the land up at McCarthy. So that got pushed aside. So it does fall on them. I'm not trying to pass the buck, but the select board can't override what the 5 elected officials for Parks and Rec should be spearheading. And then the question would come is if, and I hope we do get the invite from MSBA, right? But if by chance we don't, then that falls in, does the town want to look at a bigger project? And that throws the number up, right? And it doesn't mean we technically can't if it's on MSBA, but the difference is you can't try to combine buildings and then expect the MSBA to pick it up. You have to keep it very clean.
you can do non-MSBA work in the same building, you just have to be very specific in the division.
Right.
The question I did have, because in my time here, I recall two specific, I guess I'm sharing information and not trying to distract from our meeting, but while the people are in the room, I remember two specific votes at town meeting for a few $100,000 a piece for feasibility studies for Parks and Rec, and I was hoping or assuming those plans are in a drawer somewhere. Or were
They never got finalized.
And they never, actually, it never also, they never got the money to move forward, lost by one vote.
They only what?
For the Parks and Rec feasibility, we lost by one vote. There was a big meeting where there were people in the old high school, but that did not, unfortunately, we didn't get the big money that we needed.
I think what Leo's referring to is in 2018, we did the $100,000 to do the feasibility.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant for Parks and Rec. It's for the million.
We did spend some of it on out of Brookline, I forget.
Hunt and Associates did some initial work, but they have not spent all of that yet.
So yeah, good point. They started working on some sites at the sledding hill. And
yeah, I remember some of that. Talk about a bubble and there's all kinds of things. Yes.
And then yeah.
But to your point, for the use of this building that's over here. Yeah, it would be a good idea for the efficiencies of having people on site, designers, and the site work, if you're going to include that building and the parking required, because there's going to be more parking required for a new building on this site as well. So taking it all into consideration would be a really good foresight.
It feels prudent, and I understand it's not your guys' purview explicitly, but
so sorry.
My fear is that how do I put this kindly, that folks will see the bigger number. They'll see, oh, it's let's throw numbers out there. $80 million for a school, $5 million for a new FAP. They'll see 85 and think, oh, well, that's so high, I don't want to do it. Instead of seeing them very separately, I don't want anything to distract from the school vote task.
We did an early childhood center and admin center as part of a project that was not MSBA covered in the new middle school project in Sharon. So that part was just separate and it was lumped in as one project. So
I'll take your comment and go a different direction. Where you can get more people involved is when you start talking about, so in 2006 when we talked about a $4.5 million structure, it was to have, you could have cooking classes, you could have bingo, you could have all sorts of different things in a structure that today, we don't tend to do a lot for the seniors at best. But if you can build a community center that really does draw on the community, then when you think it's an extra $5 million, I might get something out of it because I'm not in 4th and 5th grade anymore, then you can turn it that way. So that would be a huge communication push.
Yeah, I love that.
I also think that not just Medfield, the towns typically have a tendency to kick things down the road, right? So, building, I don't know what the problem is, so I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it's a 100-year home building, it's not almost. So, it also needs to go. Well, the resident, well, and I agree. And we voted on Dale Street, let's say to do, if you don't build it, maybe you at least have a. When you do your site plan, you say, hey, there's a building for Park and Rec here, or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? So I don't know how that works. We'll get to that point, but probably incumbent to keep it in mind. Yeah, we should probably keep the conversation going like that. The Park and Rec committee, I'm actually not familiar who's on it now.
We'll poke that bear in July, August time.
All right. Motion to adjourn. If anyone's got anything else.
Second.
Perfect. Thank you. Tony, you want to start?
Tony Pepintonis, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Thanks for signing on, guys.
Mr. Chase, yes. Karen Casey, yes.
Bob Reading, yes.
John St. Yes.
Peter Michelson, yes.
Leo Brown, yes.
Bill Warner, yes.
Meredith Chamberlain, yes.
Mike Weber, yes. Thank you for everyone who came tonight. This is probably the largest one we've had. I've seen a lot of you before, prior, but all together it's been great.